He went to Braj, the land of cows, in the form of a cow. But Vatsasura was killed by Krishna. And when Kamsa heard about that, he closed his eyes again and again, and he fainted. He was very disturbed. And with great difficulty, his ministers revived him. And then he began to consult with his ministers, and he told them, I've sent so many people who have all the good qualifications. They're very expert, they're very skillful, they're very proud, they're very powerful to kill Krishna. But none of them have been able to create auspiciousness, what he considered to be auspiciousness. He says, again and again, my plans have been thwarted. What should I do? At that time, his mantris, his ministers, they told him, Deva kevalam bhakam atchabalam avalamba mahe yatashtajata eva damba sambhara kambirayante. They addressed him as Deva, oh God, oh Lord, kevalam bhakam atchabalam avalamba mahe. We should take help of Bakasura. He's such a powerful person. Without taking shelter of him, how can we be successful in this? Damba sambhara gambirayante. Persons who know this Bakasura, they understand that he's the most wicked of all the demons. Kamsa liked that idea. And he said, Mama Suritama? He said, yes, yes. He's my good friend. My good buddy. So you should send him. So Bakasura, he knew that Krishna was going to come to the place called Bakastala, the place of Baka, at the mountain of Nandishwar, near a lake. And so Bakasura went there and made himself like a mountain. The Bhagavatam begins describing this pastime in text 46. Sam samvatsakulam sarve payayishyanta ekada gatva jalasayabhyasam payadva pupa papur jalam. One day, all the boys, including Krishna and Balaram, they took their calves and they brought them to a nice reservoir of water with a desire to give them something to drink. After the animals drank some water there, then the boys also drank. Te tattradidusha bala mahat satvam avashtitam tatrasra babja nibinam gire shringam eva achutam. And then the next verse says that just by that reservoir of water, the boys saw some huge thing. A very strange creature which looked like a mountain peak that had been cut down by lightning. And they became very afraid of it. The Brahma-Vaivarta Purana describes Sweta Varno Bhayankaraha Viviktikara Varino. That demon was Sweta. He was the color white. And as we'll discuss later on, we make some philosophical analysis of this pastime, that color has some significance, that white color, as is his name, Baka, and his form. So he had a white form, and he had a Viviktakara, a very monstrous Vadana-looking face. He was a very ugly fellow. So Gopal Champu says that the boys along with Krishna, they were gazing at calves, and they made him drink some water. And then the boys, they drank water, and they all took bath. And then when they got out of the water, they dried themselves off. And they all, each one went in different directions. This is really important if you want to become a cowherd boy. You know this. They all went in different directions to collect some flowers to decorate themselves with. And then while the boys are picking the flowers, they saw this huge mountain there. And they thought, is this a mountain How has it come here? It looks as though a giant bird or something. At that time, Jiva Goswami, Gopal Champu, says that Krishna told the boys, Akarat pakshitulya shad vyaparana chapakshivat bhaka kim navaka sakshat kutavat stitir ikshate. He says, it looks like a bird, but it doesn't behave like a bird. He said, maybe it's some new type of crane, which is sitting here like a mountain. And Jiva Goswami says that just like a frog tries to swallow a little baby snake, the frog sees a snake and thinks it's like a worm. A baby snake, I'll swallow that. But he doesn't know it's a cobra. And he's going to have a big, big problem. So Bakasura was there to try to capture Krishna. Nandikishore Goswami, he describes in Vrindavan Lilamrita. We'll sing this, and maybe you can chant Hare Krishna in response with me. Sekane dekite shabe eka mahakai vartamana brajahata giri shringa kai bolo. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Sekane dekite shabe eka mahakai. One day all the boys together, they saw this huge, huge creature. It looked like a very big personality. Bhaktivinoda Thakur will get into his explanation later on, but I'll just touch on it. He says that Bakasura represents Kaitava Dharma, or someone who presents himself like a religious person. Sometimes religious persons, they like to present themselves as very, very big. Well, Bakasura presented himself as the biggest. And that huge body looked then like a mountain. Badajaya Sura Se Bakapiti Hoy Tada Teki Sakale Amaya. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. That great demon had taken the form of a baka. Sometimes we translate it as a duck, but it's not a duck. It's important, actually. We'll discuss later on. Baka means a crane. And when the boys saw that it wasn't a mountain, but it was actually a giant crane, they all became afraid. Sandana Koriya se Aila Girabare Rajendra Nandana Tahanganila Antari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Then suddenly that mountain began to move in a very, very quick way. And that bird arrived there in 1 second. And Krishna understood that he'd come there with the purpose of swallowing all of them. Kavi Karnapur also describes his pastime in his wonderful book, Ananda Vrindavan Champu. And he says there that when that bird came running over, Krishna wanted to assure his dear friends that everything was okay. So he glanced at them with a very sweet smile. And then the boys' hearts became captivated. And then Krishna came closer to that demon. And then, in 1 second, that demon swallowed Krishna up. The Brahma-Vivarta Purana gives another description in the 4th canto, chapter 16 of the book. It says that Bakasura must have been very hungry because he didn't swallow Krishna alone. Drishra cha gokulam goshte shishubir balakeshavo ita gaschyascha vapadim sarvam jagraha lilaya. That Bakasura came and he swallowed Krishna, he swallowed Balaram, and he swallowed all the boys. Just as you may have heard of Agastya Muni, who swallowed the demon Vatapi. Vatapi was a demon who, along with his brother, used to kill sadhus. His brother would cut him into little pieces and cook him in some meal. And then when the sadhu would come, he'd say, Maharaj, here's some nice prasadam. And he would eat the dead body of his brother. And then after he finished the meal, his brother would say, Vatapi, come out. And suddenly his brother would reassemble his body and cut through his stomach until Agastya Muni came there. And when Agastya Muni came, he ate the meal, and his brother called out, Vatapi, come out. And Agastya Muni just burped. Said, Vatapi's no more. And he died yesterday. So, this is an example that Brahma-Vivarta Purana gives. Bakasura swallowed Krishna, Balaram, and all the boys in one moment, just in the same way that Agastya Muni swallowed Vatapi. So, when that happened, a significant thing happened at that point. The demigods became very disturbed by that. And the Brahma-Vivarta Purana says that they all became afraid. And all of the demigods, they picked up their weapons and they went running there to the spot. Sarkas chikshep pavajam cha munir asti vinirmitam namamara bakastasmat paksham ekam dadaha cha. Indra had his thunderbolt made from the bones of the Dichi Muni, and he threw that at Bakasura. But Bakasura didn't die, but the wing that was struck by the thunderbolt of Indra burst into flames, caught on fire. Niharashtram sasadara sitartastena narada yamadandam suryaputastena kunto babuvaha. Then at that time, Chandra, the moon, he has a special weapon, the Sasadara Astra, the weapon of cold. He threw that frost weapon, and Bakasura suffered with cold. Then Surya's son, Yamaraj, he had his Yamadanda, that club which is invincible. No one can fight against that club. And he hit Bakasura with that club and knocked him unconscious. Vaya vyastram chavayuscha tena sanantaram yayo varunascha shila brishtim chakara tena pidita. Then Vayu, through his wind weapon, such a very, very powerful weapon, can move the entire universe. And that great crane was blown to another place. Then Varuna, through his hailstone weapon, and that crane suffered in a very terrible way. Then Agni, through his fire weapon, and the bird's other wing caught on fire. Then Kuvera, through his half-moon weapon, and cut off the feet of Bakasura. And then the Brahma-Vivarta Purana says that Lord Shiva threw his spear, and Bakasura fell unconscious. Meanwhile, the rishis and munis were watching all this, and apparently they didn't have so much hope in the demigods. And instead, Rishayo Maniyaschaiva, Krishnam Chakra Bayasisam. They began to offer prayers to Krishna. And in particular, it says that the Asisham, they gave their Asish, their blessings to Krishna. Krishna, you have our blessings. Go and kill this fellow. Aitasmin Tare Krishna, Prajvalam Brahmatejasa, Dadaha Daityam Sarvangam, Bhaya Bhyandam Taramishvara. Then Krishna, he expanded his effulgence, and he made every limb and organ of that demon's body burst into flames. I remember when I read this, I thought, maybe the demon's body landed in China or something, started a tradition there. Tam sarvam vamanam kritva pranam statya jadanava bakam nihitya balavan sisubirgo danai saha yayo kelikadanbanam kananam su manoraram. Then at that time, Bakasura vomited Krishna out and gave up his life. And the Brahma-Vivarta Purana says that after Krishna then killed the demon, along with the boys and calves, they went to a beautiful Kelikadamba grove of trees. The Bhagavatam, 48th verse, describes, Savai Bhako Nama, Mahanasado Bhaka Rupa Drik, Agatya Sahasa Krishnam Tikshna Tando Grisadabali. That Bakasura, he immediately swallowed up Krishna. And Jiva Goswami, in his Lagu Vaishnava Toshani, he comments on this verse. He says that, interesting thing, he says that this was the Nitya Roop, or the eternal form of Bakasura. It's not clear to me exactly what he means. I could understand it in one of two ways. One, that's his nature. It's his eternal form. Your form can also mean nature. Or two, that he eternally had the form of a bird. Well, that's interesting because the Harivamsa Purana and the Mahabharata describes that Bakasura had an elder sister. His name was Baki, better known as Putana. And the Mahabharata and the Harivamsa Purana says that she assumed the form of a bird when she entered into Braj. And we'll say something more about Putana and Bakasura's other brother, Agasura, later on. An interesting family they had. So, he says that although Bakasura managed to get Krishna into his mouth, he couldn't swallow him. Krishna stayed just right there in his throat. The Vrindavan Lilamrita, we were working on this section, it's not a very common book. In a particular verse here, half of it's not legible anymore. But it says, what is legible? Katuka karane Krishna rahe danda iya. That Krishna at that time, he kept all the boys behind him. And he stood alone in front of Bakasura. And then we can show this